Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of y'all, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button. The message is more important than the messenger. Shout out to Multiracial Movement. She asked me a question about what I meant on my own recording and on Miss Golden's live stream. Both times when I said that MLS women would have to de-westernize in order to not run off their men from any online or offline community. Now, I've recorded on this before. I think MRM may have seen it. I don't know if you did or not. But the title of it is about MLS women de-westernizing. But sadly, I saw your question underneath my recording Stand Up and Do It Alone. But I saw the question late. I saw it long after you left it because of the class that I'm now taking in addition to the one I must teach already. And these Zoom meetings I've had with advisors about particular kind of investment for which technological failures have happened every single time, no exceptions. And so by the time I realized that, I'd lost several hours anyway. Anyway, on my own channel, I don't apologize for telling you all that Islam is the solution, individually and collectively. Because submitting to Allah's will does not ever mean that you cause problems for yourself. It does mean there are sacrifices that those come, people report those even when they're Christian or Jewish. And it does mean that there will be times others will create problems for you. But even then, there's a lot of prevention available in Islam itself. But what I was proposing on Miss Golden's channel was actually more in common between the religions with an S at the end. None of which, by the way, are Western as we understand that term. So allow me to start by what I don't mean. You can't imitate the Pakistani woman. You can't imitate the Arab woman, though she's already more similar to you than you think. You can't imitate even one specific culture coming out of Western coastal Africa from which we might even descend, because you have to have some differences from her. Just as these aforementioned women have to be different from each other too, naturally. You see, when I talk about the West in a moral context, I don't talk as though every single other culture is the same, let alone equal. I will tell people in a heartbeat, especially talking about the Muslims, that if they put their culture in front of the religion itself, their culture automatically sucks. There are things that go on that are not fair to men or to women, for that matter, in these cultures, because they don't take the religion first, they take the culture first, and then they want to put that on top of the religion. That's not how it works. Revelation from God trumps culture. Tradition has to take a back seat. Dead people are not supposed to be able to peer pressure you to disobey the one who created them, and you, and me. It does mean, though, what de-westernization is I'm trying to explain, it does mean that a remoralization is necessary. According to start with religion, start with the faith that you were raised in or the one that you currently believe. Start with that. Because while I can tell you that Islam is the solution, look at what you already believe. I mean, in terms of religion. And look at the moral behavior therein. What we find to be moral and immoral is very closely related to what people of other religions find to be moral and immoral. That's where we start. It is more extensive, however, a process than what even well-meaning Western women think. Those of you who mean well and don't mean any harm to men still have to go through a much more difficult and a deep self-analysis than what you expect to have to go through. One thing I do mean is that the pick-me's are right, but you can't see that right now. They're right, hands down. But when you hear about them, and I'm not saying pygmies for those of you tuning in late, I'm not referring to the Batwa people that are short in stature in Central Africa. I'm talking about pick-me's. See, when you hear them, you think, oh my God, they're pandering to men. Men would just walk all over us if these pick-me's had their way. No. See, if pick-me's were telling you to let men be bums and couch surf and eat the kids' food, then I'd be with you and Miss Golden and some other women and deriding them. More so for telling other women to be that way than for choosing to be that way themselves. But I don't hear them saying this. I haven't heard one say this. That would be unrealistically and immorally advantageous to us and disadvantageous to women. However, I haven't heard a woman justify being with a bum or justify a man being a bum to begin with. I don't even hear women justify men running away from fights for that matter. Hell, I used to talk my way out of fights before I started actually fighting. And girls are the ones assuming I was a coward when guys realized I just was not here starting fights. So when guys got the understanding and the realization that I just wasn't out here looking for trouble, a lot of the girls around thought I was a coward, and I didn't realize that for a while. That's not from running from fights, it's just for talking my way out of them. So it doesn't make sense to me that a lady, even a pick-me, would be sitting up here saying a man can be a bum and you should let him be a bum. The pick-me's, I said, are right because they propose a give and take, and they understand that the environment has told men and women alike in the West that men give and women take. End of. Men are lauded for mending hearts we didn't break and raising kids we didn't make, but when we actually are willing to do these same things, we don't get appreciated. And we even get disrespected. Ironically, Red Femme Diaries told us the game on Poor Man's podcast. She didn't confess it against herself and didn't have to. She told us with women in general, including her own mom, think of men who accept other men's responsibilities as our own. Pick-me's simply advocate fairness between the genders, and this irritates even Western women who don't consciously mean men any harm. The question would be, why is that? Well, that's the agent software. The average person walking around in the Matrix movies, plugged into the Matrix, didn't mean anybody any harm, but there was agent software in them that could activate at any time, and they would not even remember what happened later. The issue is that the Western socialization tells women and men on a conscious and subconscious level that men give and women take, that men's value, especially below the belt, is negative, and that men cannot be a prize, nor could even both genders be prizes, but that women are born prizes and men can never become such unless they become celebrities. We've seen lately how even the celebrities aren't appreciated once they commit and put a ring on it either. Don't believe me? Name one thing Will ever did to embarrass Jada. Name one thing Steph Curry ever did to embarrass or disrespect Aisha. Hell, name one thing Dell did to embarrass Sonya. Am I telling you they never did anything? No. What I'm telling you is that if they ever did anything that was wrong, they could embarrass their wives. They either kept it under wraps so as to not embarrass them, or they didn't do any such things at all to begin with. If they did wrong, they still did what was not going to embarrass their wives. It was one of those two. They didn't get the same in return, though, and these are celebrities. So now men are looking and saying, okay, well, this is the software that's in their heads that causes even the celebrities to have to see their bad sides. Now, I admit, I don't know Sonya and Dell's situation since months ago, so update me if you want to correct me on that, but so the others, I've listened. Hell, look at Nicole Ari Parker on camera with Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade telling her and Boris's business. The idea that this is even okay is very subconscious and conscious alike. So when you remove the conscious idea that this sort of disrespect of your husband is okay, you must still do some really deep self-analysis to get rid of that subconscious idea. And this is hard for anyone to do, men or women. But men are forced to start practicing this at very young ages if they don't want to become the least attractive, least respected, and most used and disrespected in the eyes of their female peers. Not doing this to oneself is not a luxury that men have. This is because we start off young, being very well scrutinized in conjunction with the idea that we can't ever become a prize and should have no standards for women to meet. These assumptions form the basis for women who do take advantage of young boys getting away with it, and men who take advantage of young girls having to pay the piper, all puns intended, when they get caught doing so. This assumption is what women must throw out to de-westernize. These assumptions are what women must throw out to de-westernize, as I call it, and it's okay to have another term for it. It's okay if you don't want to use the term Western inside of whatever verb, but it is still necessary for Western women of any stripe to deprogram themselves from the assumptions that women are so valuable and men aren't valuable at all except to fix things and lift things. That's not how it works. If there are other cultures like this, and they may be, though I haven't really found them outside the West, they need to do the same thing, or they're not going to succeed. The notion that men can be objectified and should be okay with it, and that men should never objectify women is one assumption they're in. It's a double standard. We have several of them. Sometimes they've been disadvantageous to women. Those have been challenged. The ones that have been disadvantageous to males have not been challenged. Like the notion that men should question themselves when cheated on, but should just take accountability and call themselves dogs when we cheat is another one. And then when a man does take accountability, he still can't take enough. We saw that on somebody's live stream shortly before the Goldensphere just splintered and went off in different directions. The notion that men should have no concerns about a woman's chastity previously, and that he still needs to be experienced enough to satisfy her without her voicing any of her needs is another double standard. Now, the opposite double standard has already been questioned and thrown out. This one has not. It burdens men, period. The full meaning of de-westernization is more than I can surmise in one recording. But one thing it does not mean is that men don't have to do something similar, as I just stated. It's just that we've already been aware of this from jump. What it does mean, though, ladies, is that you have to imagine you have a good son, and that you must treat men as you would want a daughter-in-law to treat your son, and that you reach this level of maturity before you have any sons or daughters. And understand that we men are wrong for not requiring this level of maturity before conceiving with women. We've made things too easy. It means you come to an understanding that this is where our accountability lies. We've just made certain things too easy. It means that in the end, you'll just have to accept that whatever power you have comes with a proportionate amount of responsibility and accountability. It doesn't mean that men have no accountability, but it does mean that the accountability we hold is not what you would expect, nor is it the amount you would expect. You were trained to revel in the power you have and dodge accountability for it. If you're not doing that, that's good, but understand that that's still what you were trained to do. Jada did that on Red Table Talk when she finally, in front of a camera, came clean about getting busy with August Alsina. Oh, I'm the only one that can say yes. But then she wants to call it an entanglement to dodge accountability and tell Will he doesn't have to get her back. That's not what it's about. No, that's exactly what the hell it has to be about for her own good. Should he do it? No. Should he tell her he got even? Absolutely. Because she ain't gonna learn. Why? She's not de-westernizing. And if you want to call it a process by another name, she's not going through that either. One of the most difficult things that this will mean for you will include lowering material expectations. Notice I didn't say taste and wants, but expectations and demands. And this is not to tell men to be bums, but it's to prepare you ladies for the hard times God always uses to test women and the men who love them. If you hate poverty, which you will, then understand that God will test you with something just as bad if he does not test you with poverty itself. He does this with men and women. It would also mean dropping not the idea of legal and human equality, but the idea of feminism, with one exception. If you insist on holding on to feminism, any wave of it, then you must drop hypergamy in your selection, especially when it relates to career and finances. The two can't go together. They never could. Every time someone's tried to hold on to them, they've run their men off. You must realize that hypergamy and feminism can't go together and that you will have to choose. And this is something that all women in the world, Western or non-Western, they would have to choose if both of them were presented to them. When women don't struggle with this, it's because they've not been presented with both. If you can't be with a man shorter than you or even your own height, that's okay. But then why do you have to wear high heels? If it is not to further limit the men who would qualify so that now they would not qualify. Now, this is a small thing that I just said. It's really not that important, right? I'm using it to illustrate a bigger example, really. If he has to make more than you, then why compete with him in the job market for the same salary? Which one is it? You can only hold on to both if you are prepared to be single and eventually lose even the option for casual hookup encounters as you age, because holding on to both is exactly how men learn to not make approaches, even young guys these days. Holding on to both of them is a Western concept. And it is so repulsive to men because it's so impossible to satisfy, because they're mutually exclusive, that even young guys full of hormones, you would think they are, actually decrease testosterone production and they don't approach you. And that's what's gotten the most results. If you wonder why they won't shoot their shot, it's because hypergamy and feminism together only serve to tell men they can't make the cut, because if they do, they just compete with them. You'll just compete with them in whatever way they succeeded so as to eliminate them again. Notice how trivial and trifling and unimportant that example was that I used of height hypergamy when women still wear heels. It's really not that big of a deal until you look at it in the context of women raised in an environment that taught them feminism and competition with men and yet never addressed hypergamy. Well, now, with these young guys, it means something to them because they're being openly told they're inadequate as a whole. A lot more than my age group was. We were shown it. Sometimes told it. They're being told it and then shown it, and then seeing celebrity men go through it as well. And this is how they are convinced to not even shoot shots. And soon, only the men you all want will have even a reason to shoot their shots. And they already got other women. This train, because of the way that the West has trained both men and women, this train is already fast moving to a station at which the only way to get a man that ain't with other women is to shoot your shot at a man women ain't flirting with for whatever reason. And it ain't the men or boys that are driving this train to that station either. Nothing I've said is to blame today's women for what previous generations started, but to help those who really don't want it to get worse, to break the cycle that you inherited, even though it gives you too much ease and too much convenience early on in life. Many Western-raised women are not going to do this, but I still wanted to help you in the event that you ever do decide. MLS or any other genotype or phenotype. In either case, I have delivered the message as best I could in a reasonable recording length of time, and the blood is off my hands because I delivered it. Go through that difficult psychological process, or drive your men into the arms of women who either did it already or who never got ruined from the very beginning, from jump out the gate, off the bat. I really do hope that this helps to understand the answer to the question as to what I mean and what I don't mean, even though a full answer will be entirely too long for one recording. To help yourself get started in the process, go look at the matchmakers, two of whom came out of Atlanta, another one that came out of Sydney, and I forgot her name. Rebecca Lynn Pope and April Mason are the ones in Atlanta. Look at what they said. Forget about what the men said if you're not ready yet to start with that. Look at what they said. In Atlanta, where the women outnumber the men, in Atlanta, where the men are expected to have an easy time, the women were the ones who had all of these standards that most men in the world would not meet. That's a good place to start. After that, listen to Edward Anderson. Thank you for listening. Black heart, black mind, blackout. Assalamu alaikum.